What's going on, weebs, and welcome back to the channel. So today I actually wanted to talk about, how can I put this? It's more going to be like a dialogue. Well, first off, I've talked about this multiple times on the channel at this point. We're going to talk about today's video. We're going to talk about Bouncer, but realistically what I'm going to do is start a discussion set of videos overall. I want to talk about what we can do to improve the current state of NGS, because a lot of people have got a lot of great ideas and a lot of what's I'm looking for, a lot of great feedback to provide, but I feel like we don't really have the best way of providing it. Not everyone is jumping over to the forums. I know I'm personally not all the time. So it's something that I kind of want to just, I don't know, I feel like it's something fun to talk about, and I feel like it'd be a fun discussion to have with you guys. So that's what today's video is going to be talking about, or this next set of videos. I'm not sure how many I'm going to do. It'll be a few of them. But before we jump into that, if you guys are new to the channel, I'm Chrono. I do content covering primarily PSO2. Would much appreciate to subscribe as we work our way towards, I'm not even sure what mark we're going to go for. Let's just make big number get bigger, shall we? Anyway, let's go ahead and get started. Now I'm going to start these, and I'm probably going to start all other videos off with a disclaimer. I am not an end-all be-all when it comes to balance or just tons. I guess I'm not an end-all be-all when it comes to information when it covers PSO2. I make mistakes like any other human being. I'm just a turbo nerd who's played this game for a very long time and has put a lot of hours into trying to be somewhat good at it. It is totally fine to disagree with my opinions. However, it is not fine to disrespect each other or myself, and it's something that I'm not going to stand for. Just understand, you've been warned. So I figured we'd start this talking about the topic I've talked about tons and tons of times, Bouncer. Primarily Soaring Blades Bouncer, because I personally think Jet Boots Bouncer is in a better place, but we'll talk a little bit about Jet Boots Bouncer as well. At this point, you guys are probably like, old man gonna talk about Soaring Blades again and how much better it can be. Yes, I know. This is the final time we're gonna be talking about it on the channel until they make a change for it. Then we'll revisit this in a few months. So if you haven't heard my my opinions on Bouncer since the Random update, that is a video I suggest checking out. I'll try to remember to toss that in the little eye in the top right hand corner, but I tend to forget these things. It's best to just pop into the channel and take a look for it. It's got pretty much all my thoughts, what I feel like is wrong with it, what we could do better, so on and so forth. But I did want to put this into its own concealed, or like this own small spot of its own video. So to do a quick recap of that video, in case you've already seen it, you just want a quick refresher. Outside of normal attacks and Bouncer's PAs for Soaring Blades, everything else feels kind of tacked on or kind of under-designed. And if we were being perfectly honest, if we wanted to make the class just feel better, because this is something that I talk about in those other videos as well, is that part of it is not just damage. Damage being high does feel good. It's always awesome to be able to deal tons of damage, but part of it's also what it takes to deal that damage. And if it's awful or feels no fun to deal that damage, then it doesn't matter how much damage it actually is. There should always be a balance of fun first and balance after. Now, that's not to say that things should be horrifically out of balance, but how something plays should be the primary role whenever we're looking to, balance a weapon or make changes. Now, in my opinion, Soaring Blade can go one of two ways. Either we can go the route that I personally prefer, and that would be completely deleting its weapon action, completely deleting Fanatic Blade, and just more design that class a bit more like Etoile with a mix of what Jet Boots Bouncer currently is at the moment. Right now, Jet Boots has a build-up skill called Jet Sweep Jolt that whenever they deal damage with their weapon, if they deal enough of it, they're able to then cash out damage while being invulnerable. It's just like a button you press. It's nothing too crazy. Does some damage, looks cool, and it's a way to get extra damage off. Now, I really don't see why Soaring Blades can't have a similar ability to that. You can actually have this work into the next change that I mentioned, which was the weapon action. Essentially, just rip off Etoile's weapon action from base PSO2. We've done it quite a bit already. We've taken PAs from base PSO2. We've already taken skills directly from Etoile and provided them over to Tekker. I don't see why not. The PAs are very long. It's easy to get caught in them. The ability to parry attacks while you're in the middle of a PA and have it deal a bit of damage back not only feels rewarding, it's actually super fun to do. It does require you to keep this kind of tempo in your mind for looking at the attack that's coming at you. Multi-hit attacks specifically can be sometimes difficult while also still keeping damage going outwards. Now don't get me wrong, of course you'd have to balance this properly with its PAs. We don't want to have Bouncer scale higher damage than Fighter for some reason. That just seems a bit silly. Or in some cases, even I would say Braver Bouncer probably shouldn't be doing that much more damage than Bravers either. But overall, I feel like it would be a fun way to make Soaring Blades a lot less clunky. And realistically speaking, that'd be totally fine if that's the only thing the weapon action did. During a PA, you were able to parry an ability and deal some damage back to your target. If they wanted, they could even keep the whole Photon Blade thing by have, the counter damage be Photon Blades that shoot out from you. This could extremely easily tie in with that build-up skill that I was mentioning beforehand, where the more damage you deal and the more parries you get, it builds up that skill that you can then cash out for extra damage. This would also help with Soaring Blade's really awful PP economy currently. I mean, you can balance and you can manage with lower or with not so much PP, but it's pretty terrible, or it feels pretty terrible if you play sub anything other than Force in a lot of situations. I find myself going completely dry on PP if I am not sub Force on anything but basically but fighting a boss. Essentially, fighting a boss I'm mostly okay, but it feels just really, really bad. I don't see any reason why I should feel that way. Now, that would be my ideal direction. There's still another direction we could go with this technically. The Photon Blades being a very centralized point, I don't see a reason why we couldn't just have Photon Blades augment your PAs. Back in base PSO2, using Photon Blades required a bar, and the way that you would build that bar was using PAs. So there were certain PAs that actually had different effects while that bar was full. Things like Kestrel did more damage. I believe there was also a specific weapon that allowed your, what was it called? It was like an X/ attack that moved forward. I think it was Dispersion Strike. Destruction Wave? I don't remember the exact name of the skills. They're lost to me at the moment. Anyway, it was like an X/ in front of you. There was a specific weapon that if you used that specific PA, it would actually expend all of the, I guess it was called focus on the global servers. It would expend your focus to, have it shoot out a laser in front of you, essentially like an X shot in front of you. Now, funny enough, all of your PAs did a bit more damage when you had max focus. So you played a lot around having max focus. Basically, they made it easier later on down the line. Of course, just using a single PA would get your focus full, and you basically almost always had full focus anyway, but it was still a cool way to use blades and essentially just deal more damage overall. In NGS, we could take that one step further, and instead of you pressing weapon action randomly to have some blades fly out in between your attacks or while you're doing nothing, if you were to press something like Fanatic Blade, make it so blades fly out every single time you use a PA. It actually was something like this that happened. It was a weapon back in base PSO2 called the Jupiter Tullus that every time you used a PA, it shot lightning blades in front of you, which was really, really powerful, and it was pretty cool to use. You would essentially optimize around using as many PAs as possible because those blades dealt really, really good damage. I personally am still a fan of the idea of just leaving the weapon action as a parry. I would think that'd be really, really cool. They could keep the block there if they wanted to that they have currently, but I mean, the change that we got with that whole the current weapon action parry while you're in the middle of a PA, it only works for one attack and it just blocks the attack itself. Honestly, it's pretty boring overall. I do welcome it because there are certain situations that you are animation locked, but I would like the ability to think about just letting my PA go all the way through and being able to block all the incoming damage. So that's something that I'm probably always, it's like that's basically my hill that I'll probably die on. That being said, I feel like these are two different paths you could take down, or you could take Bouncer down, or take Soaring Blades Bouncer specifically down, and make the weapon feel substantially better and a lot more fun to play overall. And after you make those changes, tweak the numbers. You can definitely tweak the numbers so things don't push itself over the top. Once you nail down the way the class actually plays, that's when you start playing around with numbers, and certain things can be stronger, certain things can be weaker, and they don't have to make massive amounts of differences. Because let's not get out of control. As much as I love dealing tons of damage, I understand that there are certain classes I should not be able to beat in damage, and that's totally fine. Now, there are little things I have here and there about jet boots, but to be honest, I feel like it's much more better designed of a weapon overall. Some people do have their complaints and gripes. They do miss, Vinto kick, and they miss that and the other, but I remember playing jet boots back in base PSO2, and Vinto, while being awesome, was so powerful that you really never got away from it. So you never got away from it. There was actually a jet boot that caused your Vintos to kick much harder. I think it's called Jet Sweep Kick back in base PS2 on global, but it made them so strong, or made it so much stronger on top of, actually basically made it fire faster, and it was longer, it was a bigger animation, you'd hit more with it, that you actually went through and used some sort of like swap, like bug abuse essentially, that you would get the kick from one set of jet boots while using the other set of jet boots, something that was stronger, and you were stuck doing that the entire time. That's one of those moments where something is powerful but feels terrible to play. And I felt bad for jet boot mains back in base PSO2 because up until that point, everything was fine. And then that weapon came out and then it was still okay. And then newer weapons came out that outscaled that weapon, and then they had to deal with the whole swap thing, which I thought was just awful. But anyway, that's why I'm not really too concerned with jet sweep kick or Vinto, because something like that being that powerful, if you augment it in any way, shape, or form, people are going to keep an eye on it 110%. They're never going to get away from it. So I kind of like where jet boot's design is currently, but there's small things I think are a little bit weird. At the moment, whenever you charge a tech, it kind of like moves you closer to your target. Like it forces the movement towards your target, which I think is really weird. You should be able to have full control over movement. Not as much as like a force, I would say, but you should have somewhat control, like maybe a slow movement, but not push forward towards your target. The only other thing I could really think of is outside of, it's already really good AoE damage that jet boots does, because I've had people tell me like, oh, well, jet boots AoE really isn't that great, it's better to use soaring blades. No, jet boots AoE is actually really powerful. The biggest problem is getting targets pulled in towards you and you're using techs all the time. Realistically, it'd be really nice if jet boots had a way to pull targets in closer to them to make it more advantageous to use other skills for AoE. Similar to how they had back in base PSO2, but unfortunately that's, we can't have everything just be base PSO2 over again. It should be different. It should be something new. And that's always something that can come around with like new updates and new class changes, or I guess new skills is what I'm looking for. But honestly, that's really about all I would change with jet boots. I'm pretty comfortable with everything else. Anything else I would want with the weapon would be something I would be likely to see at, level 60 or maybe further on down the line. At this point, it does pretty well. And that's all I've got for you guys today. Hopefully this reaches the right people, they hear the right things, and this sparks some discussion on your end with other classes you guys might want to see some changes with. I do have to do some more research about some of the other classes. I really haven't had a lot of time, as you guys heard from my previous video, but I'm getting back into the swing of things and, putting more time and effort in. But also, Monster Hunter Rise just came out, so that's a problem as well. We'll talk about that later. Anyway, guys, if you have any questions, feel free to toss them into the comments below. Like if you enjoyed the video, subscribe if you want to keep up with more, and I'll see you guys next time. Take care. Peace out. Oh, and this is post-editing chrono. I actually wanted to have a small message to those of you guys who have kept up with all my content moving forward through the droughts and, all the ups and the downs. I meant to do this in like 2 videos ago, basically, but thank you. We will have more coming to the channel itself. I'm setting up some other things for you guys to be able to jump into, to enjoy for content. I'm trying to figure out some other stuff as well. So I did want to say thank you. You guys are the reason why I do this. And it's pretty humbling to see so many of you guys stick around for so long while, I was basically not even here, essentially for 2 weeks. Anyway, I don't want to make this any longer than it needs to. Thank you so much. Take care.